Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. This is episode 195. I'm so excited, getting so close to 200. I just want to thank everybody for coming along with me on a 4-year journey. So today I am so excited to have Fabio Perez on, and I've loved his work, but he's also been he's been part of the community, been part of the family already, part of the team. And so he's come, he, shows his stuff over there. He talks, gives feedback. He always has good questions. And I loved his work. I think we had maybe a talk in January, or I don't even remember when we did a Skype lunch or something.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Well, the Skype didn't work.
Yeah. But we did something, and we had lunch where we didn't eat, but we took our time during the day to spend time together. And so anyway, I'm so excited. When I got to talk to him, he has such great energy. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get the questions started. So Fabio, tell us a little bit about your background and where your love for design and type and retro kind of came in.
Hi, everybody. The whole thing must have started when I was about 10, 11 years old, back in Cuba. I think my dad took me to his job for the summer. I started going to his job, and he used to work in a magazine. And he would drop me off at the art department, basically, and it was essentially, the graphic design department. And I saw how everything got made, as old school as you can imagine. Some ladies would type up, the body copies, and then they would cut it with scissors and paste it and put it all together. And so I fell in love with that. It was a little more, practical than your regular, fine arts, which I did like, but I was more inclined to that part of the process. I thought, the cutting and pasting and putting together, I thought it was, way more interesting. Shortly after that, in '92, I came over to the United States, and somewhere in the process, it's almost like I forgot about it. I got caught up in the moment and didn't even remember that I was supposed to go down that path.
So how old were you when you were a kid and you were going to your dad's work?
10, 11, and then I got here when I was 13.
So maybe it was just culture shock and you were like, I don't know. So was your dad, he was a designer?
No, not at all. No. He was just, an executive. Yeah, that's,
okay.
Nobody in my family has any sort of artistic genes on them.
Do you think that love, watching people do it by hand, helped your craftsmanship?
Definitely, I think so. Yeah. Everything that you see today that is cool, the hand lettering, the inking and just drawing with pencils, and then they used to have this full sets of micro pens, and they used to go over everything. That's what I saw. That's what I learned. That's what I became interested on.
So were you always an illustrator? Were you a kid who drew a lot, and then that was just your dad would drop you off, and that was your babysitter in a way, and it just was a place where you flourished?
Pretty much. I mean, I think I used to be better back then at drawing, and then little by little, I sort of dropped the pencil, and then many years later, around 95, 96, I picked up the computer and learned, how to work it. But essentially I became, unattached from art, from 92 to 96.
So really during high school, kind of.
Yes.
So, but I mean, that's kind of an awkward time for a lot of people. I mean, I wasn't so into art then either. So then did you always have a love for retro? Did you like old movies, or was that something that came about later also?
I think that came about later. because the journey didn't begin in '96 either. In '96, my parents were working at a company, marble mosaics company, and my dad shows up. Must have been more like '97. My dad shows up one day with a CD with Corel Draw on it, and he tells me, this is what they used to do, sort of the blueprint of putting together the mosaics. And he's like, figure it out. And I did figure it out, and that's what I work with until today.
Right, because that's how you are on a PC and you are working in Corel Draw, which is like Illustrator. If people don't know, I've actually had a job on a PC as well, and I use Corel Draw, but it is very similar. It's kind of like Photoshop, and there was more photo, or at least that's how I remember it. But it was like in '97, and because that's when I was a professional designer,
right?
Because I'm a little older than you, clearly, but.
Well,
so he said, Peter said, because you can't see, Peter said, that's going to blow people's minds. Fabio uses Corel Draw. And then he typed a bunch of like KLSJHD, nothing, not real words. He said, mind blown. So, but it is just a tool. Your mind and the design is somewhere else. But one of the things that I have, you use a lot of humor, but you also, your color is fantastic. This is one area that I really need to work on with me. And then your speed is so, like, I remember one time we said something on the show, and I'm not kidding, 15 minutes after the show, you were like, hey, it's on Twitter. And I'm like, what? I mean, like, I haven't even thought about like the video is still processing and you have finished. And I'm just, I mean, like, did you stop time? Like, what happened that, I think the booger snot thing. But it really is amazing. So when you're seeing something and you have an idea, do you sketch it out? What's kind of your process? No,
that's something that I probably should work on, the sketching part. Because for the most part, 99% of the time, I see it in my head, and I just go straight to the computer and crank it out.
But we were talking about this before, one of the reasons that I do think you're so fast, and I don't think you probably always have been, at least, I mean, don't take this the wrong way. I mean, I would imagine that not everybody comes out of the womb just being the most amazing designer. It is a skill that you perfect in time. And so right. I feel like you have done this, and one of the reasons that you're so good at your job is that there's a lot of, you have a lot of time constraints, and you don't have a lot of sometimes you'll have more time to do things, but sometimes it's like, hey, we got to get this done by the end of the day, right? And so it teaches you to be a quick and good decision maker.
It's on constant practice. It's you do it every day. So
like the booger snot thing, were you, how long did something like that take? And were you just using, like, when you use fonts, and when do you use hand lettering?
Hand lettering if I have a little more time, or, if the piece calls for it, like, there's something in the content of the piece that in my mind might call for it, There's sort of the organic look of it, by doing it by hand. But most of the times I'll just cheat it and do it on the computer, and then just, beat it to death till it looks like something that was handmade.
So you take like a typeface and then you vectorize it, and so it's in paths so that you can manipulate it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Sometimes, yeah. Like I'll do all the type work and all the vector work in Corel, and then I'll take it to Photoshop to destroy it. Essentially, yeah.
And add textures, because that's another one thing that you're terrific at.
And add the textures on it, yeah. Just a combination of textures, essentially, yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about a little bit about the retro style. So how long ago did you start? Because it seems like you just really like this is a great space for you. You do that really well. It's not all you do. You definitely do a lot of other things really well too.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like that is an area, and I think part of it's your illustration style, the way you texturize things, and then color again.
I think it's a combination of when I started getting back into the design mode in my head, that I wanted to do it essentially. I started just archiving as much content as I could. It was sort of the one thing that got me back on it. Just by consuming and consuming and consuming and looking at blocks after blocks after blocks, and when I started, putting things together, the idea of the squeaky clean vector didn't seem enough to me. And so I would take it to Photoshop and just add, some sort of texture that would make it look organic, that would give it a feel.
Give it a 2.
Simply because I thought it was way too simple. I mean, I'm like, I think I got to do more on this, and just started adding to it.
Right.
And by practice and habit, it became a thing.
Well, and you've actually done some packaging, and like for the juice bar, I think, or isn't it?
No. It's on my list. I have to get onto something like that.
But I think there was something. It was like, but that would also use that tooth. It seems like tactilely, that's something that is really. I mean, your hand skills, your craftsmanship seem amazing. So it hasn't been that long, maybe, but you just consumed. I do think the more you eat, better, the more you produce better, right?
Right.
In comes out. So what about color? Is that something you've always been good at, like even as a 10-year-old, or was that something you've developed?
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Okay, from
it just I guess by seeing things and how they work, and just eye candy combinations.
So like when you're thinking about a piece like this, and you're thinking about the colors, are you thinking about the colors from the get-go and you're putting in color, or are you gonna go through a couple different color options?
I'll go through a million combinations. I'll go through a million combinations, and I don't know, pick the one that I like the best. I think for that one in particular, I made 2 simply because I couldn't make up my mind.
Right.
I didn't know which one I liked better, and I just said, let them both go out into the world. And even because most likely I'll pick the color that I want to play with in Corel.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I take it to Photoshop, once I'm towards the end, I might play with the hue and completely change it. Because at that point, once the textures are applied, the stress, whatever, by looking at it, and what the change in hue does, I might think it fits a little better. And
are you making your own brushes to do the distress, or are you buying brushes and then adding those? And then what about colors? Are you buying any like filters, or are you making your own?
I don't want to get people mad, but I haven't bought anything.
So you make everything.
Yeah.
So then you could sell your things.
Yeah.
It's, you don't want anybody to have the
No, I do want to buy people's products and use them.
No, but what about you selling what you've made?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've been thinking about it. It's just one of those things that, I think, there's so many people, some great people out there, you know, putting phenomenal packages like that who's gonna want to look at mine? You know
what? But a lot of people say that, and I know Dustin Lee would say the exact same thing because he's in very similar market.
Right. I mean, that's the idol. But
then that just tells you that there is a market, and you can just have a different market, different segment of that market, and you do have to differentiate. But it shows you that people are spending money on those, and I think you are going to reach people that Dustin will never reach, and I just feel like you should, because this is the other thing we're going to talk about, and it's later on, is that this stuff that you're doing, and these posters and these prints and these t-shirts, this is all kind of a side business. So you work a full-time job 40 hours a week, you have a family, but you still find time to make work. I mean, granted, you're like a magician because you're so fast, but that would be extra income coming in. I just want to encourage you. I know it's another thing, but like, I can imagine that. I think you would probably make amazing shots on how to use different things. And you know what, like the little advertisements on Creative Market, you know, like it's not really an ad, but it's an ad for a product.
Yeah, how do they
can't think of what they're called. Hero images.
The hero images.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Brian White's here, and Doc's here, and Megan is here. Anyway, just so everybody's saying hey. So Peter says he has to beat you with a stick to get off your tail and get that done. It really is. I really think that you, and I think a lot of people think that. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, somebody else is doing it. And then, you know what? So if I had never, I don't think I have the same audience as Debbie Millman, right? Probably not. But if I said, I'm never going to be like Debbie Millman, I'm never going to start this podcast. I mean, then we would have never met. So it's kind of, even though it's my own little way, I feel like I have my own reach, and there's somebody else, you know, there's the reason me and you are friends, right? And it's not because we were just in a Slack channel together. It was because of this. And so if I had said to you, hey, well, I'd really like to start this podcast, but, you know, there's this other lady who's like really good, and she's really has better equipment and does everything better, and she's nicer, and she never says shoot boogers or booger snot. Then, you know what I mean? Then would you have said, you're right, Diane, you know what, you should never start that? You would never have said that, would you?
Yeah, I know.
Right? So
absolutely.
And Doc says he's guilty of that thinking too. It really is. But like Brian White, I can't wait for you guys to meet in person, because Brian White is just as prolific, right? He is wicked fast too.
Yes.
But he puts stuff out there. And you know, I just feel like there's something, it's like angel wings in a way, because he just tries and he puts it out there, and you know, like he's sold things. Like I have bought things from Brian White, and Brian makes great product. Yeah. Are there other people making similar products? Absolutely. But sometimes, Fabio, people want to just buy what you make because they see what you do with it, and they think maybe I can do that too. Right. Anyway, I'm just trying to.
No. You're absolutely correct. Yes, make it a goal for next year.
And Brian says you're going to have beer with him at Creative South. And Amy says, listen to this. I love this. Such wisdom. Amy says, no one else can create what you can, Fabio, so there's your advantage. And you could even do a whole class on just being fast or making decisions, or, hey, here, do these. I mean, there's so many things. Anyway, let's move on, because people don't want to. I'm a good cheerleader, but let's get through talking about what you're great at. So, color and illustration. So you actually are really good with color, you're really good with illustration, and then you're also really good with type, which is actually a threesome that doesn't happen a ton. Sometimes people are more deficit in type if they're better at illustration, or vice versa. So did you, when you were consuming, were there any blogs or particular artists like Cassandra? I think of his like travel posters. Was there anybody that you really dug into, or that you can remember?
Absolutely. The guy back when I was working with my parents, and I started getting, the itch to get back into design. Um, I don't know how I got started, but I started, digging through blogs and blogs, and I found the work of Scott Hansen, ISO 50, and just blew my mind. And I, and then I found out that he was also a DJ and a musician, and he was selling, products like T-shirts and posters, and the whole combination of everything that he was doing just entirely blew my mind. I'm like,
Because
this
why?
guy's, huh?
Because why?
Because he, for the most part, or at least I guess back in that moment, I thought that you could only do one.
Ah.
You can only be good or great at one sort of profession, or
Mhm.
and this guy was just living my life. I'm like, that's everything I want to do. I want to create super cool work like that. His colors, I love his color combinations. That hue that he has on all his work, very 70-ish. That was my biggest influence. And then at some point, I had to stop looking at his work, so I wouldn't, subconsciously, like.
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like we learn from the masters, we replicate for a while, and then we start making our own, right?
Yeah.
So, so what if he never started? What if he never showed any of his work because somebody else had already done it?
I don't know.
Right? He would have never influenced you, and you would have never made. Anyway, I'm just telling you, you've got to just riding you. Other people are in there saying that. Peter says Fabio has just such great potential and just needs more pushing. So, and then Doc said, "Living my life." What a great quote. He said he was going to borrow that. But I feel like people are influenced from you as well. So let's talk about being fast. How long that booger snot one? How long did that one take you to do? And were you doing it while you were listening to the show? Did you start during the show? Because it seemed like it was bam, you were done.
No, I usually listen. I usually take lunch at 2:30 so I can listen to your show, and I go to the nearby coffee shop and just sit there and enjoy the show basically by myself. And so by the time the show was over, and had a blast that day with the whole booger snot thing, by the time the show was over, I got in my car, I went back to work, and it was the first thing that came out. And I sent it to you.
Yeah, and it was super fast. So this is something I feel like a lot of designers have issues with. It could be in the concept phase, ideation phase. It could be in the production phase. And then sometimes it's in that decision-making phase at the end when you're trying to figure out colors.
Right.
What's in concepting? What's been something that you've done or you've noticed that has gotten you faster?
Just go with a decision. Just whatever comes to mind, just go with it. Because I'm one of those that, I mean, I have tons and tons and tons of work that never see the light of day. Make up a quick thing and just like, who cares? Boom, delete. But at some point, and I guess my job has essentially helped me a lot, in this particular area. I don't have the time to dwell on it, to sit on it. I have to open up a door and just start running down that path, and wherever it takes me. If they don't like it, then I have to run back and then go another way. But I can't just sit there and think, okay, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
I don't have that luxury. And so I guess that combined with the fact that a lot of these pieces are merely for fun.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, I guess there's no way to go wrong about it, right? You know?
Right. So I'm going to share my screen because I pulled this up, and you actually made one for Type Ed, and Rachel's here, so I want her to see this too. And maybe she already has. And for some reason, I'm not logged in, so I can't like hit love or whatever. But let me show people, because I think Brian was asking what the thing was. And so let me share my screen.
Okay.
And okay, so there's the booger snot one, and it's I mean, you typed in stuff, but then you made the booger snot part special, I think. Right? I don't think that's what the type came out looking like, right?
No, not at all. I put some sort of booger snots flying across.
Right. So, but this was something that literally, I mean, I really do think in 15 minutes after the show was over, you had this up. And so I'm going to show you so this was for Amir's birthday. Again, this is not something that you are, I think it's practice, actually. You will do something and then put something up. So this one, this one was great. This was, I appreciate that. But I, by accident, use Siri all the time. And she does not know Fabio. So she called you Fabio. And I hit send. So, but there's another one. Again, that shows concept, right? You're concepting things out from the get-go, and then maybe playing with color. But then, Rachel, I'm not sure if you saw this one. This was from
last week.
Yes, from last week, which I thought is terrific. So, all right. So let me stop sharing, because now I can see. So we have a bunch of people were saying stuff. So Brian, we got your booger snacks. You got to see it. So Jose says, drinking all those, I don't know how to say that word, cafecetios.
Cafecito.
Cafecito. So do you think caffeine plays a role?
Huh?
Do you think caffeine, I'm assuming that's coffee or caffeinated beverages. Do you think that plays a role in you being fast?
No. I don't think it does anything at this point. I can drink a whole colada and go to sleep like a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so in the next phase in production, you've again made decisions quick. You've come up with something, and you told me this earlier. You have an idea in your head, and then you just go for it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's about that you've done this so many times that you know what works and what doesn't. And you're not afraid. This is one of my fears, is making something ugly. So I just won't do it. I just won't start. And it's the same thing, like what you're saying is there's a lot of stuff that never goes out in public.
Right.
Right? But you still make it. You're still creating it. It doesn't have to be seen, but it's, in a way, it's practice. Do you think that's one of the reasons that you're fast production wise?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't have a choice. You know, they expect it from me, and I have to deliver.
Tell us about your work, like work at work. Like, how many things are you producing in a day? What are some days like, and then what are other days like?
I work in a print shop, in a t-shirt printing shop, and we do most of the work for all the major cruise lines and blood banks. Those are, like, the two heavy industries as far as clients. And so we have to, the art department is run by, a friend of mine who's the art director, and I'm the art director, and it's just us two, basically. And we just have to, crank out art and art and art and art on a ridiculous level. And on top of that, I have to get it approved by 3 and 4 levels of third parties that are involved, and then essentially output it for production and quality control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, okay.
Are you doing you're not giving the file to somebody else to make for the screens. You actually have to do that part too sometimes, right?
I do that all the time, yes.
So that also makes your quality goes up because you know what the screens are able to do. And so you can work within the parameters better.
Exactly. When I'm designing something from scratch, because somebody asked me for something, I know exactly what I'm sending out. You know, I know how to deal with it when it comes back approved. Um, I can work on the limit of colors. I can work essentially with all the information I had, you know, so that I can make my job easier, you know, by the time to output it.
Right.
You know.
So having, I must think that having limited color palettes, working in limited color palettes also has made you better, because you've had to work in different or limited parameters for so long at such a high intensity of output.
Right.
That must be, but it's about making the things and doing quantity, right?
Right.
To some extent.
Right. It's the 10,000 hour rule. You know, you do it every day, and you do it every day, and you do it every day, and it reaches that level where it's second nature.
Right.
You know, the decision making, the you know, everything.
But for people like me that are afraid of making something ugly, you would tell me to just get off my butt and just start making it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I love your work, you know, and just like me, there's probably a ton of people that love it as well. And so, you know, we live in a day and age where you find your audience, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So see, oops, I just dropped my pen. I have to go get it. Sorry. It's like I could be somebody else when I come back up. Anyway. So last part about the being fast, because I really feel like people, the one, it's just about practicing. One, it's about, I think consuming more good work has made you be able to execute and have ideas. But I think those are two keys that I'm pulling from this that I can tell my students, and then other designers and myself, I guess.
Right.
And then the other thing was in the production phase, when after you've met with the client and you've done everything, you actually probably are thinking about those things as you're designing them, so that the production phase is almost null and void because you've already covered that stuff early on, right?
Right, exactly. You know, I'll get an email saying, you know, I have a blood drive, you know, with this particular theme coming up and next week or next month. Can you get me something winter theme? And I'll usually put together 3 or 4 options within the day and send them over. And most of the times I'll have a hint at which one they might end up picking. And what I'll do is that I'll take that one and I'll put it for production and leave it in a folder.
Wow.
And so I've been wrong, but by the time it comes back approved, all I got to do is just, you know, take it out of the place and just, you know, green light it to production.
So that makes you really, one, that you understand how to read people and know what they're wanting.
Yeah. And
then it makes you really valuable to your employer, I'm assuming, because it does cut out a lot of time.
I hope so.
So how about you coming up with stuff on your own? Is it harder to come up when you don't have parameters like blood drive about the theme's going to be parades? I don't know. Like, when you're at home, do you just say, hey, I'm doing beer or I'm doing coffee, or like, because you do a lot of coffee stuff. So is it just from love of things?
It's the most generic thing I can think of. It's the one thing that I know most people are not going to have a problem with. It's, you know, that's actually for me, that part, like everything that I do for me, for myself, that's the hardest part. Thinking what to do.
Because you're trying to sell it?
Yeah.
Or you're trying to connect?
I think both, you know, like at the end, I'll think, if it makes a good product, if it makes a good poster, if it makes a good, if there's something that I can turn into to sell.
Yeah.
You know.
Will people buy this? I mean,
exactly.
You do have to think, and so I think that the coffee stuff, the the beer stuff, you've done a lot of other things as well. Like there's one of my favorite things is the mixing bowl.
Okay.
I should probably just so tell them when you started your store, and then I'm going to go to your PDF and we're going to go through that. So
okay.
And it's an online store, and you can find it at etsy.com/shop/20 and then 21, and then you're spelling out 20, then the numbers 21, and then ONE creative. But then you can also, I think you can access it through your main shop or your main site, which is 21creative.com. Everything's spelled out. I'm going to actually use in the chat right now. So when did you open it?
I think it was 2012. It was basically a couple of months after I started working at this place. When I started working at this place, I had no idea how a shirt got printed. And basically I learned my way on the job. And so basically I became obsessed, with the whole screen printing technique. And so much that I wanted to do it at home. I wanted to do the posters. I wanted to, screen print in my home. Mm-hmm. And I went and got everything I needed on eBay. I went on a spending spree, and I got me like 10 screens and the wide format printer and the squeegees and all the chemicals. And by the time I spent, I think it was like 2 weekends trying to get the emulsion right and the and trying to cure the screens properly. I said, this is madness. This is crazy. All I gotta do is hit control print. I got the printer. It's a little bit bigger than an 8.5, so it's a little bit different than what anybody else could probably offer. And so I went on this obsession and got the most expensive paper that I could find, which was Canson paper. It's French. It's like 300 grams thick. I couldn't even roll it to mail it out. And so I started sandwiching, the print with 2 pieces of cardboard and shipping it out like that. And, I started getting bagged like 35% of them punched right in the middle by the wonderful postal service people. And so I started downgrading on paper, just so that I could be able to roll it. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into being able to buy mailing tubes and securing the prints. And then the combination of that, sort of with my wife being, crazy about Etsy around the time, and she's like, you got to do something on Etsy. You got to do something on Etsy. You got to do something on Etsy. Maybe like a year ago, Amir had gotten me the invite for Dribble, which I changed my life. I will always thank him for that. And so I didn't have anything tangible. I didn't have anything real to put up on Dribble, right? Like the work that I was doing, I couldn't share it.
I'm going to show your Dribble. I'm going to share my screen and show your Dribble.
Okay.
So let me go to Dribble real quick. Keep talking.
All right. So basically the work that I was doing for real wasn't shareable, or at least I think shouldn't be. I don't know, so I wouldn't. To this day, I never share the work that I actually do. And so I started making up stuff to put up on Dribble, just to be active, to enjoy my privileges. And, the things like the rocket and the fly me to the moon sort of, were born out of that. And that combined with, started working at this place and wanting to do something, and the Etsy thing, I just started putting them up. A couple of prints up in the shop. Didn't get a sale until like 4 months after, and I just started uploading more and more work, and next thing you know, the Etsy shop became a thing.
So it takes time, is what I've heard you say. One, to get better, and two, don't give up. But you also figured out that it wasn't so much about the actual physicality of it that really attracted you. I think you said this to me back in January, whenever we talked. You said, I could just hit Command P, and I was getting what I liked from the actual Photoshop or whatever, instead of it only being, the physical and making that texture. I love this project, the Days of Type.
Okay.
36
days of type.
Yeah. So I think I can click in, right? It's not letting me. Anyway, but these were really neat. Talk about this project just a little bit.
That was for this year. I had done it the last 2 years with the intention of doing something different, a different take, different textures, different style. Just trying to test myself, in how many different ways I could do something like that. It was wonderful to do, because it became like a 15-minute exercise in the morning. Like every day, it was like, okay, what are we doing today? And I just, crank something out and, 15-20 minutes and be a part of it. And then now for this third year, I went with a different take, which was, the one that you had up.
Oh.
And yeah.
Let me go back.
And instead of focusing on the different feels and textures and styles on it, I figure I featured the most famous or the most used typefaces by designers per day. So starting with Arial, Bodoni,
right.
Comic Sans.
That one's a little scary.
Yeah. I actually made it because the day that the C was due, it was the same day of April's Fool.
Oh. Ooh,
and so I actually made a Comic Sans one.
That's terrific. So 15 to 20 minutes, Megan says, oh my goodness, you're killing me. Megan says that. She's like, so encourage Megan. What would you tell Megan? So I think Megan is overwhelmed that it was so fast, but it was because you were doing it regularly, right?
Yeah. And like I said, everything becomes this huge jukebox in your head. Mm-hmm. Where all the tools, all the tricks, everything you've seen, it's in there. And so by the time that you want to do something, if you come in with an idea of what to do, all you have to do is just, pull from the jukebox what you need and just apply it. And if on top of that, a few of those processes, you have them somewhat streamlined to your liking, to your, muscle memory.
Right.
It's all one flat line. You can go as quick as you can.
So like if somebody was starting it and they were like, oh man, the one where it, like Clarendon or whatever, it has all the stuff. There's a lot of shadows, there's texture. Maybe that's not what you would start with if you were just starting. You might start with a different option, meaning you would start with something that it wasn't so much of a push, but it would be a push after a certain amount of time. So somebody like me who wasn't great at lettering, I probably wouldn't do a lettering. Maybe I wouldn't do a whole word. Maybe I would just do a single letter. Or it's just something so that you're pushing yourself some, but maybe
right.
You're not trying to take on so many things. Because I think a lot of people, they look at what you've done and they're like, oh my goodness, I can never do that quick. But really, you've learned and you've added new things on in time, and that's gotten you faster and better. But you've mastered. You don't try to do everything at once. You learn.
Exactly.
And also compositionally, you're going at something which is really difficult to do. I think Draplin does it really well, and I know you do it really well, is simplicity. You know, sometimes we overwork things. And I think by you having tight deadlines and having to make decisions quick, you don't overwork, or you can look at it, you step back quick, and you're like, nope, I don't need that. Let's go.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you have to focus on the most important part and just make that, make sure that shines or that comes through. And then, I mean, you can finish and then start reducing. You will realize that at some point it's a little bit too much.
Right.
And it has happened to me plenty of times where I just, like, the page is completely fully loaded of crap that the piece doesn't need.
Right.
And and then you start making variations, of the same thing, without, different colors, and at that point it's your call, which one gets put out there.
And you're not deleting, kind of like Draplin does too. He'll just make a copy, and so you're just making variations, so you can kind of look at everything that you have and make decisions from that, right?
Absolutely. My typical workspace, even when I save the file, it's got, like, 60 iterations of one thing, and it's slightly different, black and white, inverted, totally different set of fonts, colors, and at some point you got to pull the trigger and say, okay, so you drop.
Yeah. All right, so
you're the lucky one.
I want to show them your PDF that you sent me. So, and I sure hope Amir comes back to Creative South so that you can.
Please, yes.
Okay. So I have to move this sucker over so you guys can see. Can you see even the stuff over there on the right? Yeah, probably. All right. So take us through some of what this is. So T-shirt designs.
Yeah, those are the ones that I do for work. Those are the ones that I usually do for the cruise lines, for the locations, from Alaska to Spain to, these are the shirts that you see on the shop, at the gift shop, on the ships. And again, those are heavy. Those are, usually when that email comes in, it's like, we need 100 designs by next Tuesday.
Holy moly.
And so it's me and my buddy just, cranking out, design.
So Dan says the Alaska Orca lockup, way rad. All right, so let's go to the next page. So this is stuff like a regular day work that you have to do a ton of designs, and then they're going to choose. How many would they choose? Like, would one?
Usually like about 80% of what we send.
Wow. They're going to make all those T-shirts.
I think from there.
Wow.
I think from there, there's only like 2 that didn't get picked up, maybe.
Wow.
But I liked them, so I put them there.
Right. Oh, so Brian White asks, is your closet full of T-shirts?
Yeah, but
that's not all.
They're mostly about the heat.
Right. All right. So what's something like this? Is this something you would do for work?
No, this is actually an event that takes place here in Miami. As a matter of fact, this year's it's coming right up now on Friday, called Busker Fest. The founders contacted me like 4 years ago. We met at a coffee shop, and the guy, told me, what he wanted to do and what and what Pushka Press was all about, and I've been doing the work for them every year ever since.
So in your freelance, you're actually doing freelance for yourself and have your own company and selling prints, but then you're also doing freelance design for people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what about something like this?
Pretty much same thing. The story on that one, it's a little bit funny. This girl here in Miami started with this hashtag movement of having coffee, Cuban coffee at 3:05 in the afternoon, which 3:05 is the area code for Miami. And I saw the tweet and I thought it was genius, and I jumped at it, you know. And next thing you know, I made a logo for somebody that didn't know that wanted a logo, and just the whole thing got built from scratch, and you know, and it took off its own little, you know, social media movement down here.
That's cool. All right. So what about something like this?
Couple of pieces for AIGA. Again, I know the president, and I used to know a girl that used to work for there. I don't know how we bumped into each other one day, and she had a couple of programs going on, and she asked me, you know, if I could come up with something, and I did those too.
So Dan says, and this is the Dan Marino. He says that kind of work, 3:05 and work from the heart for something you're 110% in on yields fantastic results. Yeah, I mean, your work is really good. All right, so what about these? Because you know, there's a range here for sure, and I think that another one of your talents. But one thing, if you look at there, you know, there's a focus. And I know that you're making decisions quick, but there's concept, and then there's it's not overworked, and I think that to me is one of my issues. So, do you want to tell us about these?
These are I know somebody that works for the AAA arena down here, and every year for whenever they have artists come in, they do this thing where they say thanks to the artist, you know, with a plaque or a Miami Heat jersey, and they wanted to try something different with like a poster, you know, saying thanks for coming in, and these are a couple of pieces that I did, including the one on the top right-hand corner was an ad that was featured on a couple of magazines, you know, saying thank you for the new year from the AAA.
So Brian White wants to know, and we did kind of miss this a little bit maybe, but what's your background in school? Because we talked about how your dad would take you, but what did you study in school? And you were doing it, you came back to it like in high school, right? You started doing, he gave you a Corel Draw. Did you go to college for this?
Yeah, no, I went to high school, no involvement with art whatsoever. After graduating high school, I took about 3 years off, and just working everywhere I could. And then in '98, I decided to actually go back to school, and I ended up going to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. But quite frankly, that one I breezed through as well. I went and got my diploma, but I don't remember being there.
Oh, were you working a lot at the time?
Yeah, I was working at the Miami Herald at that moment, in downtown, and I had to get out of there by 5 and make it to North Miami Beach, Fort Lauderdale, I'm sorry, by 6. So there's no way that I could do that. So I had to switch jobs and get me a job at another printing company. They used to do like patches for uniforms, and it was closer to the school. And so by the time I got out of there at 5, I was able to make it to school. But you know, I can't say that I gained anything than more than a 20-something thousand
Loan.
frame hanging up in my wall.
Right. Well, I want to go back just to see, talk about some more of your work. So let me screen share. I know we're almost out of time.
Okay.
You're taking lunch.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate greatly. So I'm just gonna. This looks like another kind of promotion.
Freelance work.
But you're doing some Instagram or social media pieces and booklets, or
I was doing everything they asked me for. Can you do me a presentation booklet, and can you do a couple of things to put on social media,
right?
And so the package was, that's another client that I've never met, that I've known him for like 6 years now, and
in Delaware.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Couple of different pieces. The one on the top is a buddy of mine that has a body shop. Bottom left is a mail out that I did for a friend of mine who works for another company, but their creative services, had something very generic, and he wanted to impress this client, and I basically, did it for him so he could get the account. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So this is the packaging I was thinking of.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, this is the most. Yeah, these are more recent. Again, a guy that I met here a couple of years ago has a gas station, and he sells crawlers and growlers, which I didn't know either what they were until I went and met with him. It's basically beer in a can.
Mm-hmm.
And then little by little, I did the can, the growler redesign, and the crawler redesign. And he also has those cleansing juices. And he asked me if I could do that. I said, sure. I've never done it before, but I'll give it a try.
Yeah, you did really well. And then these are just some brands.
Random logos through the years.
That's awesome. It's a lot to take in. Maybe I'll put the PDF, if you want me to, on the underneath your thing so people can go back through. So Friday must be your favorite day.
And I know people react to it.
Yeah, right. So it's knowing your audience for sure.
Right.
I just want people to see some of this stuff. So the Fabio is me calling it's Siri.
Right.
That's how Siri hears Fabio.
Right.
But just such beautiful work. So you sell stickers on your site. You have this T-shirt. What other kind of things besides you sell coasters too, right?
Yes.
I bought some of those for my sister. Oops, I didn't mean to zoom in. I meant to go to the next one. And then lots of prints. So these, you have a bunch of prints that are different cities that are like maps.
Right.
And then people who, definitely just positive messages. I think that's another one of your strengths is, don't let anything kind of get you down. You also have a love for Star Wars.
Right.
And then I love the robots, but the texture, like the drink good beer with good friends. I love that one. The colors in the cafe espresso, absolutely beautiful. But like the spaceship one, that was just you trying to figure out what you were going to do. Right.
The travel across the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I had just watched the movie Travel Across the Universe, about the Beatles.
Oh,
And the quote just stayed with me for like a week, and I think I started drawing the planets and put the phrase together, and one thing led to another, and that's how that one got born.
It's beautiful. And then you have a whole more planets and kind of to the moon, things like that. And then I love the crayon one. Boy, I really, but like May the Force Be With You, that's a great one has like a retro feel, but then it also, it's Star Wars.
Right.
And then this one's beautiful. Tons. I mean, you definitely have that inspiration, but your type and you have such fun with it. But again, it's just not overworked. And so it just has a very strong message. So I'm just praising you all I can.
Thank you so much.
36 days of type. So different challenges from different years, right?
I think it's either a combination or I think they're all from
that year.
From the second year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, and then that was the last one. So now we can go back. And so it is 2:30. So I want to share with people how they can get in touch with you. And so if you go to Instagram, it's at 21 Creative, and that is all spelled out. Hopefully this will let me do it. And then on Dribble and Twitter, you can see it. It's 20 spelled out, and then the numbers 21, and then ONE. And then again, if you want to get this buy stuff, you can just hunt for him on Etsy at 21 Creative, or you can just go to his website, which is 21creative.com. Everything is spelled out, and there you go. But Fabio, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So can't wait to hug your neck in April. And
absolutely.
I really do. I hope Amir's there so that, because it's different when you get to see people that you've known for a long time, and then it's in person.
Yep. Right? I can't wait. I can't wait.
Me neither. So we have one more episode of Design Recharge, and that will be next week for the year of 2016. It is my friend. He's a brother from another mother. Ben Hannum. He has written some. He's on his second book, and of course I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Hang on a second. It is a graphic design student's guide to freelance, which actually has stuff in there that we can use. Also, there's contracts and things like that. And then the one he's doing now is blank, bad word, but it doesn't have a bad word on it. It's like, how they do it when they write it in, but it's not really writing it. And it's for portfolio. So I'm super excited. We're going to talk about the new book. And I hope you guys join me for the last Design Recharge of the year. And if you need to get in touch with me, you can always email me at diane@rechargingyou.com. You spell out YOU. And then just check out any of the old episodes at or whatever. Let me tell you where you check it out. Go to rechargingyou.com. I don't know what is up with me today. But so let me tell you what a couple people said real quick, because I know you got to go. But Brian White, he says, your typographic work is refreshingly fun. It's different from the mainstream design, and it's all got your good style. So that's
thank you, Brian.
And then Jose says, Fabio, good job, man. Thank you guys for coming and sharing along. I hope you got inspired to maybe it inspires me to just make some choices and not be worried about throwing something on the floor, even though everything doesn't have to be perfect.
Yep.
So you're such an inspiration. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm super excited that I get to see you in April. And hopefully I get to see many of the rest of you in April too. But I will see you guys next week. And Dan says, love listening on midday during my 3 p.m. down slump while at work. Man, me too. This is like my sleep time. Not that I ever take a nap during the day, but this is not my most exciting. And Jeffy Thomas says, super inspiring. So
thank you.
Thank you so much, Fabio. And I'll see you guys next week.